to tell you that just a few minutes ago, I was made aware of some sad news, and I'd like to dedicate this class to the memory of Mona Brown. Yeah, I can see, Gloria. Marlene just let me know, and I have very fond memories of Mona. It's been a few years since I've seen her, and together with Leo, just talking at Kiddush, and a few years that I was still in Toronto, Mona being an advocate of learning, and learning was also the adult education chairman for a number of years. And a wonderful soul, and she will be missed. And may her memory be for a bracha. So, yesterday, a father wrote to his daughters, young daughters, one-ish and three-ish, Aina and Edva. You are going today, and he posted this on Facebook. You are going today with Ima and Abba to vote. This is a golden privilege, zchut zahav, that we must realize to ensure our future. This privilege wasn't taken for granted in the country that Abba was born in. Many lost their lives to ensure others would have the option of voting. Ima and me will try to choose the best leaders. Now, just that note, if it were to remain anonymous, would be touching enough. But what makes it particularly touching is, this is Tommy Kavari, Tibby's brother, who's been living in Israel for many years, and we know that they come from Romania. So he appreciates, as he calls it, a golden privilege to vote. And it is. But I'm still not going to get into my thoughts on that. On Monday, 100-year-old Gavriel Suriel was interviewed on the radio, for she has voted in every election since the establishment of modern Israel. And like the immigrants that we discussed last week, Gavriela made her way here on November 1st, actually 1940, from Germany. She spent 10 months in Atlit, the detainee camp, moving then to Eilat, where she was a nurse until 1983. She has 15 grandchildren and 39 great-grandchildren. Wow. And she sounds still very, very sharp. She talked of the chalutziyut, the pioneering in the air, that idealistic devotion to rebuilding the land that we talked of last week. And let's remind ourselves of that air, that sense, with a few more folk songs of that time, a few of which will be familiar to us because they are still sung. So I will share the screen. The first, Me'al Piskat Har Hatzofim.
Shalom lach Yerushalayim.
Thank you, Esther. Mona would have loved singing this. And so, written at this time, from the summit of Mount Scopus, I bow me down before thee. From the summit of Mount Scopus, Yerushalayim, I greet thee. 100 generations I have dreamt of thee, hoping once more thy face to see. So we indicated last week that we were talking about the longings to return. And now, from Mount Scopus, Har Hatzofim, I see you. Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, shine forth upon thy sun. Thy ruins, O Yerushalayim, I will rebuild, each one. From the summit of Mount Scopus, Jerusalem, I greet thee. Thousands of exiles from afar lift up their eyes to thee. 1,000 of blessings we will sing. City and temple of our King, Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, I will not stir from here. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, come, O Messiah, come near. Now, last week, in a couple of the poem songs that we explored, there was usually a collective tone. Here we find something interesting, that it is both first person singular and first person plural, which adds to the feeling of this touches me personally, and I myself will be an active agent in Yerushalayim or anywhere in Zion, but we will all be in this together. And we go on from Avigdor HaMeiri's Me'al Piskat Har Hatzofim to a very interesting little song that he put together. Chalutz, build, chalutz bneh, shoes without soles, and the stones burn the feet, trousers without pockets, no matter, chalutz, build Jerusalem. Now, what is being declared here? Why this imagery of the shoes without soles? For the poems that I'm bringing are a bit different, even though on the same theme as last week. So there's something new here. What additional characteristic is being alluded to here?
Despite poverty, the soles, shoes without soles and pockets, trousers without pockets, it doesn't matter. It's only a material thing. What's important?
Exactly, Esther. They have come, though looking to build and rebuild and have parnasa and have things flourish, and there's nothing wrong with that. They have not come caring about materialism. Exactly. That's what HaMeiri is saying.
That poem has a beautiful melody.
Yes, do you want to share it with us?
With my voice, I think you'd rather I didn't serenade you.
Okay, all right. I'll look for the melody another time. Aaron Rabinovich, here in the country, in the land of our father's delight, shall come true all the dreams of the night. Here to live and here create a home of beauty, freedom, state. Here the wandering spirit shall rest. Here the tongue of the Torah be blessed. Plow ye, plow, plow, plow. Sing ye, now, now, now. Shout with joy, joy, joy. The seeds are sprouting o'er the land. Plow ye, plow, plow, plow. Sing ye now, now, now. Shout with joy, joy, joy. Golden grain shall yet there stand. What are a few more elements in this that we didn't hear necessarily in the one before or the one before?
The joy?
Joy, but you have a sense in Yerushalayim that there is some joy. But yes, what else? We've talked of dreams.
The fulfillment of dreams.
Okay.
The land is blossoming, the land, the fruit of the land, the wheat is there.
Yes.
All the work.
Okay. Already seeing the productivity, the concrete results, and that we are no longer a wandering spirit, which is also going to be alluded to in Natan Alterman's song, Erev Yored, as evening falls, that there wasn't just a concern for farming and it being outside in the country, but listen to this. Urban life too is important. A vendor of roast chestnuts, he yells by his cart, reddening the embers up with a tin fan. Once covered in Polish soil and set apart from the living, he burst out a living man. What is this vendor opposed to? Or better yet, he is the opposite of what? He's business. That's what a vendor is.
He's not
a survivor.
I'm sorry?
He's a survivor.
He's a survivor.
But
okay, he's yelling out. And what tells you, say a bit more, Bev, about the fact that he's a survivor. How do you know that?
Well, once covered in Polish soil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Burst out a living man, bursting out, so he survived the Shoah.
Exactly. And the fact that it says that he yells is in contrast to having had to be silent in Poland.
Yeah.
In Poland. Absolutely. And so Gabriela Tsuriel came here and she too sang this song that I also grew up on. Nivne Artsenu Eretz Moledet. We will build our land, our homeland, for this land is our very own. We will build our land, our homeland. This is our blood's command, the command of generations. Thirsty for freedom and uprightness, we will march courageously towards the liberation of the people. Now, what's very important about this almost marching tune is that, yes, we dreamed of freedom, but it's not just a sense of abandonment and doing whatever you wish, but there is meant to be direction. There is meant to be direction.
The Palmach sang it all the time.
Yes. And uprightness. So we have a right to want that freedom, but on the other hand, it's for a purpose, a positive purpose. So we've set the tone again that this was the air of that period of Chalutziot, of the pioneering. But for sure, there were issues immediately. And let's return to talk of them. We only alluded to very, very briefly last week the issue of religion, and state.
Mhm.
First, we're going to look at about 5 statements by key individuals representing divergent views, some from way back and others not quite at the beginning. And obviously, I want you to pay attention to how they differ from each other. So the first, said by a Mukitzur, who, as you see, was the former Director General of the United Kibbutz Movement. And he says the following, and I'm going to read slowly. I want you to take it in and see not just
We
how
can-
they differ one from the other, but which one grabs you? Or do you take to?
Bracha, we can't
Or-
see it.
I'm sorry?
We can't see the sheet. It just say former director is in the bottom and nothing underneath.
No, but what's above it? His quote is above it.
Faith and religion.
Yes. One of the main achievements, source says, of Zionism is the absolute legitimization of secular life. The return of the Jew as a fully fledged player on the stage of national history has dictated a pluralism in which all forms of Jewish life, secular and religious, can find expression. Okay, moving on. The next, from the philosopher Shmuel Hugo Bergman. The state of Israel possesses the option to be a state like all other states, with all the political intrigues, in which case it will lack importance and its basis will constitute an ordinary historical event in which humanity will have no interest. Or perhaps this little state will wish to serve as the genuine realization of Israel's age-old messianic vision, the beginning of a movement to improve the world along the lines of the kingdom of heaven. Only then will all the earthly families be blessed by the existence of the state. Each day, every hour, the state of Israel will be tested as to whether it elected to pursue this path or the course of common politics. Each and every law will constitute a test. Even more, whatever will appear in books and newspapers in Israel, and whatever will be debated or asserted in Israel will reflect whether we really wish to make our contribution or will satisfy ourselves with the ordinary patterns.
Wow.
Okay? I want you to know I'm being very disciplined because either of these could be a segue into me sharing those thoughts about the elections, but I'm holding off. Rabbi Yehuda Leib Maimon, who was the first minister of religions. The Hebrew state must be established and conducted in accordance with the principles of the Hebrew religion, that is, the Torah of Israel, not of Israel, of Israel. Our conviction is clear. As far as we, the nation, are concerned, religion and state requires each other. Now,
I have a problem with that
okay, why?
because religion, or halacha, as you would call it, is not always morally correct. So you can be, from the religious point of view, you may be right and your actions may be right, but ethically they're not.
So what you're saying is that he can't automatically assume that everything in the Torah should be implemented?
Yes, because to me, true justice is when morality trumps halacha.
Okay, now I'll quickly say that I believe that it is human beings who have distorted the Torah, and therefore sometimes there is a divide between halacha and ethical behavior. Now, on the other hand, we know that there are, I'll give you an example, an issue in the Torah that the rabbis, the later Talmudic rabbis, saw fit to say this can't possibly be. What am I talking about? Slavery. Secondly, having more than one wife, etc., etc. Okay, so that's my response to you. But what is interesting, as observant and rigid as Maimon was, that I like the fact that he says religion and state require each other.
Yeah.
But of course, the question will be how to make that an appropriate combination. Stephen.
I have a big
Stephen, I see your
problem.
hand.
Yeah, I have a big problem with this, as Esther does as well. First of all, it's non-inclusive. It cuts, it delegitimizes me and a majority of those who are different from those who want to impose their will on me. Secondly, within the group of those who want to impose their will on all other people identifying with our traditions, they, within their own groups, they can't even agree on what is the correct way or the better way, because there is no better way. Every way is a good way as long as you're serious about your convictions, and you can be a cultural Jew, you can be a Jew that doesn't believe in Hashem. You can question, and that's the whole issue about our people. As Elliot knows and Esther knows, and you know very well, my dear teacher, we are people that question. These people don't question. They point a finger at me and say, you are not valid because you don't do what we say is a Jew. And what a Jew is not necessarily religion. Religion's part of it, but we are far more than just a religion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. I'm looking for what just happened here to happen as we read each of these.
By the way,
I might have said that I like what he said as vis-a-vis religion and state, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I like overall what he's suggesting, okay?
At Bracha, I do like the last sentence that says religion and state require each other, because
Yes.
the basis of religion is really a compromise. If you
I don't necessarily see that he's saying there is a compromise, but just that
if you require each other, it means that everybody has to give in a little bit.
Okay. All right. Now let's go to Amnon Rubinstein, who is a member of Knesset. If you remember, a party that was called Shinui, which means change. And listen to what he says. The state of Israel is, at times, defined as a Jewish state. But this definition misses the mark. Are you listening, Stephen? Okay. A state cannot be Jewish since it is not a creation of Judaism. From a religious viewpoint, a Jewish state implies a halachic state, one in which the Mosaic Torah is the only code of law, whereas from a free, liberal, non-halachic point of view, there is difficulty in attaching the term Jew to a state which is entirely a social and state instrument. It would be preferable, Rubenstein says, in my view, to return to Herzl's original definition. Israel is the state of the Jews because it will be a state by virtue of its being a state of belonging to the Jews. Israel is duty-bound to preserve the basic Jewish moral lesson. What was hateful to us when we constituted a minority, what is bad for the Jews when they are scattered, will be hateful to us and harmful to us even today, following our attainment of freedom and independence. So he sees the Jewishness of the state very differently from the above rabbi. Okay, now, Rabbi Daniel Hartman, who we've studied, Judaism isn't a spectator sport, but a participation sport. Too many Israelis believe that authentic Judaism is the Judaism they hate. And this is where I have a problem, as I said a couple of moments ago, with those who have distorted what I genuinely believe God had in mind. We've discussed how God evolved, changed his mind. And the problem here is the perception that too many ignorant, and perhaps not their own fault, Israelis are lacking an awareness because of what has been imposed, sadly, and they've got the wrong picture, and that is a sin.
I agree.
Bracha.
Now, Marlene.
I agree with you.
Marlene?
I guess my mic is on. I'm having trouble with my Zoom today, which is why it was late. It's very interesting because I'm taking a course at the moment through Hartman, and now that you mentioned Danielle Hartman, there was two of the sources that were used in the first lecture, which is basically the courses on why Israel, why should we be even questioning Israel at this moment in time, which many people are doing, were statements by Rabbi David Hartman and the other one by Yeshayahu Leibovich. And David Hartman actually believes that Israel came through Torah, that it began in the desert and has evolved and is now a country in which both religion and state should be apart. Whereas the Yeshayahu Leibovich, which I'm sure you would understand, says, it's got, the religion will corrupt the state and they should be absolutely separate. I mean, that was my understanding of what was being said. So the argument goes on and on and on and on, and where it will conclude, nobody knows because we don't know the future.
If you came in late, so perhaps you missed, we dedicated this class. I said you had just given me the sad news of Mona.
Thank you.
But also I said that I'm holding off until we get to a certain point in the class to discuss a few things that relate to the elections. And it's precisely that some of the issues that were issues then are still issues today. Yeah, thank you. By the way, it has not much significance, but Yeshayahu Leibovich's daughter lives in Zipporah's building. So, okay. So, Ben Gurion, as we come to the conclusion of these different representations of divergent views, Ben Gurion, the religious debate in Israel is complicated. I'm gonna leave it at that. No. The religious debate in Israel is complicated by the peculiar character of the Jewish faith. The problem of religion in Israel is not similar to that of church and state in Christian countries. The Jewish faith differs fundamentally from Christianity. It is not satisfied with abstract religious principles. It is based on mitzvot, on specific commandments as to what shall be done and what shall not be done. And this is Ben Gurion talking, which comprehend the entire life of man from the moment of birth and even earlier until death and burial, leaving no neutral area outside the field of religion. At the same time, the Jewish religion is national in character. It has absorbed all the historic elements in the life of the Jewish people from the time it came into being until this day, and it is not easy to separate the national from the religious aspect. Now, I have over the years made a case for us wanting us to appreciate that Judaism has something to say and positively impact and enrich every area of life, the most mundane. In other words, that it's not meant to be confined to a sanctuary, to a synagogue. But it has something to say about family living, about sports, about economics, about medicine. And it can shed light. And the rabbis were great psychologists, I believe, in all these areas. The question becomes imposing it. But what's unfortunate is that it's just seen by too many as an imposition rather than seeing there's something beautiful here. Just like Shabbat. It shouldn't be seen as a don't do this, don't do that, but it's something that makes us take time to sit back, to appreciate, etc., etc. Okay, now we're going to get into that more. What I want us to do now, so those are divergent views. Anybody want to comment about any of them before we move on? Beyond what you've already said?
Yes, Bracha, in relation to these two divergent views, possibly. Our first visit to Israel was in 1973. And the first place we went to, we toured Jerusalem. And we thought, this is really, turned us on. It's beautiful. What a beautiful place, and the whole atmosphere. From there, we moved on to Tel Aviv, and we met people that we had known for many years who have been living in Israel all their lives. They'd never been to Jerusalem, and they didn't intend to go to Jerusalem. And I won't say any more, but we felt like turning around and getting back on the bus and going home. How can we understand this country? That's a vivid example that came to mind when you read these two articles?
Have they been to Jerusalem?
No.
They don't go unless they're very rarely.
Okay, very interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting. Yes.
Bracha,
I,
Bracha. Who,
I'm-
go,
Linda,
Linda, go
Linda?
ahead.
Okay,
ahead.
then, is that Zipporah after Linda?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wonder if it's easier for us than for Israelis who are there. And there's been such a rigid hold by the religious establishment that has turned all the Israelis off. I mean,
Not all, not all.
oh, no, but so many,
Yes,
so many.
yeah,
And that's part of the problem. Even, no, I mean, it would depend what kind of religion. You want everybody to be free to be who they are, and you want it to be a Jewish state, but you also, how Jewish?
You
Okay,
know,
we're
you
gonna
know,
get into that.
eh,
Zipporah,
Yeah, all I'm thinking, a state of the Jews is one thing, but we have laws here that disallow certain rabbis to, for example, perform a wedding. And we know at least one between us, that legally speaking, the laws are not for all Jews encompassing. Look what happens with the women of the wall once a month.
Yeah.
There are laws here that verge on not just the state of the Jews, but almost a theocracy. And we don't want that. There's no place for a theocracy in this land.
I
And
think
that's some of what we're talking about, that izun, that balance that is needed, that of the 4 quotes that you gave,
yes,
there is, it only somehow a little bit touches on that issue.
I
okay,
think that
thank you. Okay, anybody else?
I think if you look at history, when the state of Israel was established, the religious people were in a minority. And so
Yes, for sure.
So when Ben Gurion gave them the power that he did, he didn't think that it will grow up to what it did. So
Yeah,
you have to think of the times.
okay, so I want us to look at a letter that Ben Gurion, as part of the Jewish Agency for Palestine, was responsible for. You can see June 19th, 1947. And it's called the Status Quo Agreement to the World Organization of Agudas Israel. Dear sirs, the agency's executive has learned from its chairman of your request concerning guarantees on matters of matrimony, which Zipporah just mentioned, Shabbat, education, and kashrut in the Jewish state, once it is established in our days. The agency's executive has authorized the undersigned to formulate its position regarding the issues you have mentioned at the meeting. The position of the agency's executive is as follows. A, Shabbat. It is clear that Shabbat will be the legal day of rest in the Jewish state. Permission will naturally be given to Christians and to those practicing other religions to rest on their weekly day of rest. B, kashrut. All means should be pursued to ensure that every state-run kitchen for the use of Jews serves kosher food. C, marital law. All the members of the executive appreciate the seriousness of the problem and the grave difficulties pertaining to it. And all the bodies represented in the agency's executive will do whatever possible to satisfy the deep need of the religiously observant in this matter, lest the house of Israel be divided in two. D, education. Full autonomy will be guaranteed to every education network. Incidentally, this policy already exists in the Zionist Federation and Knesset Yisrael. And the state will not infringe on the religious philosophy or the religious conscience of any part of the Jewish people. Sincerely, on behalf of the Jewish Agency Executive, David Ben Gurion, Rabbi Y.L. Fishman, and Yitzhak Greenbaum. Now, just as an aside, this Y.L. Fishman is the Rabbi Maimon that we created before. What would Fishman's last name be? Because they wanted him to put it into Hebrew. It would have been Ish Doug. Now, you want your name to be that. So instead, because he was related to Maimonides, who was Ben Maimon, he took on the name Maimon. Now, I want to ask you, note that there are some issues that are missing from this. Now, every single one of those issues is still
Contentious.
alive today. But are there any other contentious issues that we don't see there? Anybody want to? And they were added on later. They
Service-
realized,
Service in the army.
okay, all right. Exemptions from the military for yeshiva students.
And for
What else?
religious women.
Yes, okay, whether religious girls, would it be fine for them to do Sherut Leumi, national service? Anything else? Okay, we have a lot more to do, so I'm going to tell you. I'm surprised you didn't think of this. Prohibition of pig farming.
Oh, yeah.
El Al flights on Shabbat. By the way, I'm very distressed to hear that El Al is no longer going to be landing or taking off in your city.
So are we.
Anyway, archaeological excavations, autopsies, abortion. Now, these were all raised later on.
Also, donations, organ donation was a big
Organ donation, thank you, Esther, but that wouldn't necessarily have been thought of then. Okay, now.
Gay rights.
Okay, Marlene.
Okay, right.
So-
Enter their mind.
All right, so I'm going to say the following right now. These issues still exist. And as a wise man, Zichrono Livracha, once said, Israel and these issues, zelo pashut. It is not simple. Going to vote yesterday was a very, very serious activity, if we really think about it. And they said that 80% of the population, much more than in the last number of years, beyond this last time that we've had with all these elections.
They say 1980, since 1980.
Yeah,
So people have.
so many people voted.
Yeah.
Now, it's not so clear cut that this one's right she's the perfect one, because it is so complicated. Now, you just said marriage, gay rights, women of the wall,
Conversions.
conversions. Now, one of the key issues in the elections, beside the high cost of living and besides security, internal, external, is individual rights, whether it's lifestyle, religiosity, women's rights. And that is very, very crucial to Jewish living. And I believe halachic living. But together with that, you also think, when I talked earlier about too many Israelis being ignorant, unfortunately, the present education minister, she has taken out of the secular schools, which up till now, a secular school, students studied Tanakh, perhaps as history, but they studied Tanakh. And they studied Jewish history, the time of the temple and kings. That has been removed from the curriculum in secular schools, and it is no longer a bagrut, matriculation exam. And one of the things that she has introduced in its place is gender studies. Now, that does not mean to say that gender studies isn't important, but in grade 2, and already having the students question, do you want to be a boy? Do you want to be a girl? And
They're
even
imitating
earlier,
America.
now,
They're imitating America.
now, when I hear Yair Lapid talk about ensuring the rights of all these different categories, but I don't hear him mention Zionism or Judaism, there is something wrong with that, whatever form it will take. But we are meant to have a certain character. And I don't want to hear, yes, but we're not there. We're working at it. It's easy to be totally pristine when you don't have material to work with and you're human. So I like the idea of everything being closed on Shabbat because I think there's something wonderful in that. But Uvacharta, God said, choose. Well, he said, choose life. And he wants us. I believe he wants us to have that. But I understand that democracy is also crucial to Jewish living. I'm not going to be giving you, I'm not a political commentator, but I'm just giving you my take on how very complicated this is. And no one dare say that it's not. And this one sounds so loving. It becomes complicated also when I meet on the news today a Dr. Alon Schwartz. Who is Dr. Alon Schwartz? He's the head of the trauma department at Shaarei Tzedek Hospital. And why was he on TV? Because he was taking care of today's victim. It is very complicated, people. I choose to believe that each of our candidates is devoted to our people and our country, because why would anybody want the headache just to have power? But I pray. And there were some good vibes today, even on a TV station that is known to be very leftist, in talking about one of the characters in particular, extremist, saying that they see a possibility that now that he's in, he will realize constraints. This isn't going to be the Wild West. Now, together with that, I have to tell you it's a good thing, because it becomes very complicated, that some people stay away from talking politics with the best of friends and the closest of family. It's a good thing I had my aunt and uncle Rosh Hashanah, because we wouldn't be talking this week. But what I'm also praying for is that the people that are going to be in power, it appears, also listen. That's a key theme we have talked about for a few years now, being open to listening. And this liberal TV station said they have a sense that now the people in power can be a little calmer, and maybe will want the best for the people of this country. Now, that's what I have to say. I want to go on, for we said that there are different types of issues and challenges, and one stands out from the very beginning: confronting the enemy. One of the first directions Ben-Gurion insisted upon was that the different armed force units, Haganah, Palmach, the Irgun or Etzel, and Lehi, he believed had to come under a single command, which created the Israel Defense Forces, Tzahal. And let's follow this, so that even this, a decision that Ben-Gurion had to make, was it easy? No. All these kinds of decisions are complicated. So let's just understand, follow this. Summer 1947, the ship LST-138 of the American Navy is purchased by a branch of the Irgun in North America. The ship's name is changed to Altalena. The name, which means seesaw in Italian, is the pen name of Zev Jabotinsky. Winter 1947. The ship is packed with close to 1,000 immigrants and combatants, some of them Holocaust survivors. crew members, and tons of military equipment. June 11th, 1948. After a nearly month-long delay, the Altalena set sail from France to the shores of Israel. This delay seals its fate since the ship sails after the signing of an agreement earlier in the month to incorporate the Irgun into the IDF. The United Nations Security Council, which throughout the entire period of the war had been engaged in the question of Palestine, stepped up its efforts to bring the fighting to an end. And instead of releasing a non-binding declaration, issued an order demanding that both sides agree to retreat and that sanctions would be applied to the side that refused. On June 10th, 48, both sides agreed to the terms of the ceasefire devised by the UN-appointed mediator Count Folk Bernadotte. The ceasefire, which took effect the next day, lasted 4 weeks. This headline, Rak Samchut Achat B'Yisrael, Memshalto HaChukit, only one authority in Israel. June 15th, 1948, the Irgun's commander in Israel, Menachem Begin, meets with the representatives of the Israeli government to inform them that the ship had sailed from the port in Paris against his orders. Begin is insistent that 1/5 of the arms on board the ship be transferred to independent Irgun units in Yerushalayim and the rest to the IDF, with preference to Irgun units integrated into the IDF. David Ben-Gurion approves the transfer of some of the arms to Irgun units in the capital, but commands the rest of the weapons to be transferred immediately and without any preconditions to the IDF. Differences of opinion and suspicion are rife on both sides. June 20, 1948, while the Altalena is docked at Kfar Vitkin and the crew starts to unload the cargo, a heated meeting is underway in the government cabinet regarding unfolding events. The government's decision is to give the IDF headquarters the authority to launch a counterattack, provided they coordinate enough manpower by the appointed time. The commander must try to control the situation without use of force, but if his command is not obeyed, then with the use of force. June 21, 48, the Alexandrani Brigade surrounds Kfar Vitkin. The commanding officer sends an ultimatum to Menachem Begin to hand over the ship with all of its contents to the IDF. They are given 10 minutes to respond. With no response to the ultimatum, there is an exchange of fire in which 2 Irgun fighters and 2 IDF soldiers are killed. Menachem Begin boards the Altalena and it retreats to the shores of Tel Aviv. June 22nd, 48. Ground forces under the command of Yigal Yadin are sent to overpower the Altalena. Heavy fire is exchanged between Irgun forces on the ship and IDF forces on the shore. Fearing the outbreak of a civil war, Begin calls on Irgun fighters not to return fire. The artillery gunner who receives the order to open fire on the ship refuses to do so, claiming that he would rather be tried and even executed than fire upon fellow Jews. The second gunner hesitates to fire, but eventually is convinced and fires on the ship. During the exchange, as we know, 10 Irgun fighters and 1 IDF soldier are killed. And here is the Altalena. Now, one's a prime minister.
Hello?
And they have to make choices.
Yes.
Bev, you have to mute yourself, please. It's said that when Begin visited Ben Gurion 20 years later in stable care, he questioned his action had he known Menachem Begin better. Now, there were also personal choices at this time. Who wrote this? A note that was found in her pocket. Dear mother, I don't know what to tell you. I will only say this. 1,000 thanks and more, and forgive me if you can. After all, you will understand better than anyone else that words are not necessary now. With great love, your daughter. Anyone?
Is that Chana Senesh?
Yes, Chana Senesh. Born in Budapest, Hungary, 1921. She was to be a literary great, loved writing till her last day. But due to anti-Semitism, she became a pioneer, Zionistic, and immigrated to Israel and spent time on an agricultural school. And then in 1943, she volunteered for the rescue mission as a paratrooper with the British Air Force. And we know that she was captured and would not concede and give any information, though she was tortured for 3 weeks, and at the age of 23 was executed. And we have beautiful songs and poems written by Chana. Now, her dilemma. She was hoping to rescue her mother, who was still there. She knew it was a suicide mission. Now, let's end with one more personal, and this is written by two people who love history and took a look at Eliezer ben Yehuda, the founder, or we should say the one who revived the Hebrew language as a modern living language. In Yerushalayim, the secular Ben Yehuda tried to use Hebrew to attract religious Jews to the nationalist cause. He and his wife wore religious garb. He grew out his beard and peyot, and his wife wore a wig, trying to pass as observant. But the ultra-Orthodox Jews living in Yerushalayim, for whom Hebrew was used only for holy purposes, such as studying Torah or davening, saw through Ben Yehuda's guise. Sensing his secular nationalist intentions, they rejected him and his language. They went so far as to declare a cherem, excommunicating Ben Yehuda. The setback did little to deter Ben Yehuda from concentrating on his project. He continued to speak Hebrew at home and convinced other families who were part of the growing community of secular Jewish nationalists in Palestine to do the same. Now, he wasn't genuinely observant, so he wasn't giving up that because of his rejection. So that's not the real dilemma. At home, Ben Yehuda used his son to test the viability of the Hebrew language project. If a child can be brought up speaking entirely Hebrew, then an entire nation should be able to adopt the language as well. This required extreme measures on the part of Ben Yehuda, who tried to prevent his son from playing with other children and from hearing other languages spoken. So afraid was the father of failing in his endeavor. Now, that's not an easy choice to make. And David Greens elaborates. At the father's insistence, his son Ben Sion, who changed his name to Itamar Ben Avi after his mother's death in 1891, Ben means son of, and Avi means my father, but also is the acronym of Eliezer Ben Yehuda, was from birth not permitted to hear any language other than Hebrew at home. Now, according to the son, he did not begin to speak until age 4, after seeing Eliezer Ben Yehuda fly into a fit of anger when he heard Devorah, his wife, singing their son a lullaby in Russian. The son says, I suddenly understood everything that was happening in this house, he recalled in his own memoir. Stood up straight before my father with the will of a boy defending his mother, even against his father, and screamed, Father! Mother covered me with kisses. They both realized that good had emerged from evil, and that from my great shock at seeing my father enraged and my mother sobbing, the dumbness had been removed from my lips and speech had come to my mouth. Now, over the years, I have heard stories of how extreme Ben Yehuda was. And he, in fact, was imposing that on his family with good intentions. But we have been told that his son suffered for that, and his wife, no doubt, also. But because of Eliezer Ben Yehuda, we have a living, thriving language. So I'm going to stop sharing. And at this point, if anybody else would like to say anything about any of this, please go ahead.
Nothing except to say thank you. It was very enlightening session.
Thank you, Esther. Come on, something
That's
else.
very
though.
powerful, but he had no notion that a child could become bilingual.
I don't know if that word existed then, but I got to tell you, years ago, I don't know, probably around 10 years ago, I'm in front of a class of 13 or 14-year-olds, and I used the word telegram. They didn't know what I was talking about. But I then wanted to explain to them what the word in Hebrew is for telegram. Anybody here know?
Something Barak.
Miv-rak. Miv-rak. And that is a combination. Eliezer Ben Yehuda put the two together. The mem is for michtav, a letter,
And Barak is past. From
Barak is lightning.
Lightning.
I thought I meant it's fast.
A letter that comes fast as lightning.
Well, that's what I mean by fast.
Okay. Okay. And incredible. Anyone else?
It took a lot of guts to do what Ben Yehuda did.
There used to be a museum in downtown Jerusalem dedicated to his story and his family's story, but I don't think it's there anymore, and I don't know if it exists anymore. They took us during Old Button to this museum, right near Bank of Poalim at the top of the
King
Midrash.
George?
Yeah, on King George. Years ago, we all went as a class. And it was so interesting. There was a little movie that had been made, and I don't know if it exists anymore. I know it's not there anymore. Whether it's somewhere else in the city, I don't know. I should look. I'd go back. Mamash Kadai. Mamash.
Okay.
We'll have to look for it. and
All right.
go.
We will do that.
It was very.
Anyone else?
Lots to think about.
Yeah.
I like that you pointed out, I like that you brought out the idea that it's a state of the Jews and not a Jewish state. That
Yeah.
to me has significance. Also,
Yeah.
we only have one state, us Jews, and there are lots of other religions, ethnic groups that have many states. And I think ours is tiny, and we have to decide, or the Jewish people have to decide what is important for our state.
By the way, Bracha, I remember in the late 40s, early 50s, the Orthodox Jews translated the Torah and so on from Hebrew to Yiddish.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Shirley Ann, I want to qualify one thing that you said that, and you are a proponent of this, a state of the Jews and not a Jewish state.
Mhm.
Somebody want to help me out here? You know what I want to say? That I want this to have prevalent Jewish values. You agree with that? Yeah, I know you. I know you.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Okay, but it's a question of the imposing, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So I don't think it's because of the results of the election, not at all. She had planned this a while ago. We want to wish Tzipora a great trip. She's leaving for Egypt in a few days. She's coming back, please God.
You know, we keep saying Yetziat Mitzrayim, but I'm going anyway. Yeah.
And okay,
Thank you.
good seeing you all. And really, let's pray that.
I'm going to share a sad moment in my life. I was 10 years old when my father was going to Egypt, and he was taking me with him. And I got up in the morning and I had the measles. And I didn't, until today, I have tears in my eyes when I remember it.
For sure.
It was still under the British mandate.
Yeah. Okay. Be well. And we'll
Thanks,
see you
Bracha.
next week.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yes, of course.